Welcome back to my channel for this week's Human Design Transit Report, known as What's New with Human Design. Today's October 18th, and I actually didn't do a transit report last week because I was recovering from my Women Evolving Our World, Feminine Sovereignty, Leadership, and the Right Use of Power conference that I put on right before that. If you want to know more about what's been going on this last week with the Sun in the gate 42 and the Earth in the gate 32, you can go and watch this episode of mine that I did about 6 months ago, because the gates get lit up by the Sun and the Earth in reverse order every 6 months. So go and check that out, and make sure to read the description too, because the description actually has a lot about the gates in it as well. So I'm going to focus on what's happening starting on Wednesday, October 20th, when the Sun moves into the gate 50 and the Earth moves into the gate 3. And we also have some interesting things happening with the outer planets that I'm going to talk about as well. So let's start with what is happening on October 20th. So you can see right here the image for the personality part, or the conscious part of the human design chart for what's going to start happening on Wednesday. You can see that the Sun has moved into the gate 50 and the Earth has moved into the gate 3. So let's talk about the gate 50 first. So the gate 50 is part of the Spleen center. You can see here where the spleen is. It's on the left-hand side of the human design chart. And the 50 is coming off of that inside triangle, and it's pointing towards the sacral. It's part of the defense circuit, which I'll talk about in a second. The spleen center, we probably heard me talk about this if you've been following me at all, is the center for instinct, for intuition, for the immune system, and for timing. And because it is the center for instinct, it carries with it, in all of the different gates of the spleen center, different types of fears that are really instinctually based. They're not necessarily, and most of the time, not based in what's happening in real time right now. They're more based in an older kind of instinctual response. And the fear of the 50 is about letting down the people in your life. Now, let's talk about what the 50 is. So the 50 in traditional human design is known as the gate of values, and in quantum human design is known as nurturing. And the reason for this is it really has to do with how we are relating to people in the tribe. It's a tribal energy. And the defense circuit is all about how we take care of the next generation. It's how we bring up our young people. It's how we know who we are as a tribe. So the values part has to do with how we relate to each other and how we relate to the earth, and what do we care about, what do we say is a priority. Because it's a tribal energy, we are really concerned about how whatever it is that we do, or how we kind of fit into the whole, what the influence or the impact of that is. Because in tribal energy, the general MO is that's what's good for the group or the community is more significant than what's good for the individual. Now, this doesn't always hold case, but it's generally the case. So with the 50, this is an energy for values, and Curry Parker, who created quantum human design, has renamed it as nurturing. I really like that, nurturing. I have this gate defined in my chart, and I definitely relate to the part, it's a teaching gate, because it is about how we're transmitting our values, what we care about, how we know who we are as a people, to the next generation. Ideally, when we're doing this, it comes across as nurturing. And that's why I like the new quantum human design name, because ideally, the person who's receiving that is going to feel that they're being nurtured into their adulthood. They're going to be nurtured into their maturity as a full member of the tribe or of the community. It's also a nurturing that looks to our elders, to the people who need support in the later part of their life, or to people who are not well 100% or differently abled, who might need more support. So it also has to do with nurturing in that regard. And if you think about this for a second, it is part of the group's values about how we treat our children, how we treat our differently abled members, how we treat our elders. And generally in the collective energy that we live inside of in the United States, We don't do very well with that. We don't necessarily support our children all that well, or our differently abled people, or our elderly. We're not really all that good at it. It can be better inside of different communities that hold that as a value. But when you look at how our school systems are supported or not supported, our teachers who have the responsibility, this is heavy in the 50 gate, right? Bringing up the children and teaching them, who we are as a group, what do we value, what are our priorities. We don't really support our teachers very well. We also don't support the caregivers of the elderly very well. So this is something that I think we could really evolve and get better at inside of the United States. The shadow aspect, as I talk about shadow, would be when somebody was using kind of the authority of this position of teacher or mentor, but was using it in a way to try to control other people, particularly to control young people, right? And so disciplining them, trying to get them to fit into whatever the kind of tribal box is, and not allowing them to self-express, to explore, to be able to determine for themselves what their values are and what their priorities are. And so this is a bit of a tension that happens inside of the defense circuit and inside of tribal energy, where you have people who are growing up who are wanting to be able to have some sense of self-determination, but they also want to be part of the tribe, part of the group, part of the community. The disempowered expression of the 50 would be if you just gave away your power to whoever you saw as the authority, and you just submerged whatever your values were or whatever mattered to you, and you just went along with the program because you didn't think you had the power to do anything else. So in its most awakened or its highest expression, the 50 allows for individual expression. It supports individual creativity inside of a conversation about who we are as a people and what our values are. So we want to be able to have some flexibility around that and know that different individuals are going to show up in the world differently. They're going to care about things differently. And that's okay. And we can still have a set of values that actually includes the recognition of individual differences, but that also has a common set of values around, do we kill other people? Do we steal from other people? Do we devastate the land and the forests? And do we pollute the oceans? Do we pollute the wetlands? So many of these things, right? And so I think there's a lot of debate and negotiation that's going on right now about who are we as a people and what do we care about. So this is a good time for you to be kind of leaning into that for yourself, looking at your own life, looking at your family, looking at the people that you feel you're in community with, and exploring what are your values and is it supporting your individual expression? Are you supporting others' individual expression, and yet also still having some common agreements and understanding about what your priorities are? With the Earth in the gate 3, it's known in traditional human design as ordering, and in quantum human design as innovation. I really prefer the quantum human design name. I think it is much more apropos for what this energy is. So the gate 3 is on the sacral center, and it is pointing downward to the root center. So it's part of what we call a format energy, which means that it's part of energy that's coming up from the root, which is drawing up energy from the earth and bringing it into the sacral center. The thing to know about these format energies is that there are pulses to the energy as it's coming up, as the root center has pulses. And so the energy is sometimes more on and sometimes more off. And so it's good to just be paying attention to that and not to try to override it if it feels like the energy is low in the 3, not to try to override it with your willpower, because that's how you can burn yourself out, but to actually be patient, to wait until the energy is coming back through in a strong way. And it will, because this is the way that the earth and 2 different motors connect with each other. The 3 is part of the knowing circuit, which is the largest circuit in the human design chart. It's individual energy as opposed to the tribal energy that we were just talking about of the 50. And it is where the knowing circuit comes down through the head and it splits and goes all the way through the sides of the body and then comes up through the central channel. So this is where that energy is coming up through the central channel. And so in the definition of innovation, what this is about is discerning which of the inspirations and insights that have come in through the knowing circuit are truly innovative and are now being captured and brought up, and they're going to come up through the sacral, through the G, and then out to be expressed and manifest through the throat center. So in this innovation, it's a kind of discernment to see, okay, so we've brought in these inspirations and insights and epiphanies through the knowing circuit, through the 61, and that's plugged directly into superconsciousness. Again, as a reminder, this is energy that is not rational, not reasonable, it's not logical, it's not linear, it's none of those things. It's directly plugged into the divine inspiration, or the kind of creative intelligence. And so it's coming through, and part of our job as we're receiving this is to be, okay, is this an energy that we want to take and utilize in our lives now? We're discerning that. It could be for later, it could be for now, and that's part of what that 3 energy is helping us to do. So the really empowered or awakened aspect of the 3 is a perception to know what it is that is useful to us now and what is for later and what may be not for us anytime soon. But then the disempowered part is where we don't really know. We can just feel a little overwhelmed and uncertain about the insights that are coming in because they don't really fit within our logical world. And the more shadow aspect is when we're taking these insights and we're trying to control or manipulate other people with these ideas that we have, these inspirations, and so that potential gets channeled into a more controlling way of being in the world. So with the earth in the 3, this gives us the opportunity to really ground ourselves in what is truly innovative that has been coming to us. What is it that we want to grab a hold of at this point to be able to work with? And what is it that we're going to care for and put aside? And we can really ground ourselves in that. And when we do that, then we have a much better idea of who we are as a people, what our values are, what our priorities are. And my recommendation is that you allow yourself to be open, your mind to be open, your heart to be open, your perception to be open, that this may be a time where you are starting to adjust what have been some of your values and some of your priorities in the past, depending on what is coming to you through this knowing circuit. My perspective is that we're in an extremely dynamic time here on planet Earth, where we're needing to upgrade our values and our priorities, just as I was saying a moment ago, so that we stop polluting the communal air supply and the communal water supply, and we stop killing our allies of the forests around the planet, for example. That we really start to upgrade our understanding of ourselves as human beings inside of a oneness that includes all of the life forms on our planet, whether that is animal or vegetable or plants, whatever it might be, and to start to respect the other life forms and to recognize that even though, yes, we are the dominant predator, that that doesn't really give us the right and the authority, even though we have the power, it doesn't give us the right and the authority to treat everything else on the planet as if it was just there for us to consume, which is what we've been doing for a long time. So My suggestion for you is to spend a little bit of time this week really kind of looking at your own way of being in your life and what your values and your priorities are, and as they relate to your family, your community, and also into the larger world, just to take a look at that and see, do I want to change any of that? And also to be opening up to what could be new innovations around this that haven't already appeared to you. And if you're a generator or manifesting generator, you can use your generative questions that begin with, I wonder what new innovations can be coming to me right now. I wonder how those innovations can help me to upgrade my understanding of the right values for me and my right priorities. And how can I start living my life from those more starting right now? The other significant pieces of news is that today Jupiter is going direct and tomorrow Mercury is going direct. And just a little while ago, both Saturn and Pluto went direct. That means that 4 planets by Wednesday will all be going direct, which is great because we've had 6 planets that were in retrograde. We still have Uranus and Neptune in retrograde motion, and they will be for some time to come. But with 4 planets moving from retrograde into moving direct, what you might just start to feel is that things are starting to move forward. Sometimes people will describe this as if in the retrograde, there's like the archer is pulling the bow back, right? Or you're pulling a slingshot back, which is kind of what retrograde motion is like. And then when the planet moves forward, it's like letting go. So it has to go back over the area that it was in. And all of these planets are still, not Mercury, but all of the outer planets are still in the same gates that they were, but now they're moving forward. And so you might start to feel this kind of a sense of momentum. If you want to know more about the specific gates where the outer planets are, you can watch this video of mine that I did a couple of weeks ago that was all about those 6 retrograde planets. And so you can get some more detail about what those specific gates are. Because as I said, all the outer planets are still in those same gates, only some of them are now moving forward and some of them are still moving backward. I don't know about you, but I think a lot of us are going to say a hallelujah with Mercury going direct tomorrow. I know I've been having some pretty challenging Mercury direct things happening. And even though I do know that there are positive ways to be with retrogrades, and that's a lot of what that video was about that I was telling you a second ago. But I definitely had some challenging Mercury retrograde situations with communication and technology. So if you've had this as well, just, breathe a sigh of relief tomorrow as Mercury goes direct and we start to have the communication challenges soften and unravel, and we start to be able to hear each other better and to be able to be more articulate about what it is that matters to us. The last thing I want to mention is that we still have the 3420 defined by the nodes, the North Node and the South Node. Again, this is going to continue through the end of January 2022, but this is manifesting generator energy. And one of the things you might look at is, how do you think this energy has been affecting you? I know for me, there's been some real upsides, and I feel that it's helped me to be more articulate. And I know during my conference last week, I could feel the energy of that 20 bringing a motor to my throat. And so that's been very positive. But I also feel a little bit buzzy from it because it's very fast and it's very powerful. And it's not something I usually have going on in my system. So especially for your non-sacral beings, your projectors, your manifestors and your reflectors, you might be starting to feel kind of buzzy from this energy, or you might be feeling some revved upness. And so while you can't get out of that energy per se, because it's just beaming down on us until the end of January, if you are feeling that way, you might want to give yourself some extra rest, and you might want to give your body some extra support in order to be able to rest, even though you've also got this super powerful 3420 energy beaming down to you from the nodes. Okay, that is my human design transit for this week. I want to invite you, if you haven't already, to join my resource library. The link is down below in the description, and it's free and it includes a lot of different videos, and I'm going to be adding some more content in there soon. So I just encourage you to do that. If you do, you'll become part of my community and you'll be getting more updates about different things that I'm doing as well. All right, many blessings, much love. Bye for now.